and how awesome, versatile, and stylish it is. And from that event, I started doing some trainings and webinars and consulting and coaching with people in sort of that industry, that niche, bloggers, event planners, brand owners, what have you. And from there, I sort of discovered my purpose. And my purpose really is to push people toward their purpose. And so everything that I do, all the content that I create, all the things that I do online is really with that in mind, to push people toward their purpose, whatever that purpose is. It is to find out what that purpose is, to discover it, to develop, and to deploy it. So that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm about. That's what most of the content that you find on this scope, on my channel, on my Instagram page, on Twitter, whatever, that's a lot of what I talk about. So what we're going to talk about today are ways to repurpose content, because one question that I get quite often is, I'm running out of things to talk about. How do you come up with all of this stuff? I am never, ever at a loss for things to talk about. I keep running a list of ideas. But I'm never at a loss because I repurpose my content. And so we're going to just talk about how you can do that in a way that is very effective, but is not always stale. It can be really, really fresh. So one thing that I want to point out is the fact that your core message, who you really are, what it is that you resoundingly are about as a content creator, especially, it can, should, and will be repeated. So you can repeat it primarily because people are finding you and joining your community, hopefully every day. So something that you talked about 6 months ago, those people aren't privy to because they weren't a part of your tribe then. So you can absolutely repeat things. A lot of people think that, oh, I talked about that 6 months ago, but there could be 60 new people that are new to your community that haven't heard that message. You actually should repeat it, especially if it is core and germane to who you are, because that's how you get known for something. That's how people become experts and gurus and things like that. A lot of the people that I follow, even here on Periscope, they talk about a lot of the same things. There are similar underlying themes to all of the things that they talk about. And so it should be the same way with you. It is okay to repeat yourself in certain ways. And you will find that I repeat myself quite a bit, but that's because it's my core message. I talk a lot about purpose. I talk a lot about just finding that and your passion and how to be productive in it, that sort of thing. So you will hear some of the same concepts and ideas talked about through several Periscopes. If you were to go back and listen to all of them, I talk about a lot of the same things. And you actually, if you follow some of my tips for repurposing content, you actually will repeat some of your core messages and primary tenets of your brand or your core message. So the first thing that I suggest as a way to repurpose your content is to refresh, repost, and repromote. So this is especially for bloggers and vloggers, people that have things that you can link back to. So you can go into an old blog post, update it, refresh it, add some new links, add some additional information that you may have discovered since that time. Just kind of spruce it up just a little bit. You don't have to completely rewrite it or do something completely over. And then you can repost it. If you look at someone that to me does this really well is Black is Beautiful, Janelle Stewart. She reposts a lot of her content daily. And when you actually click on it, and if you look at the published date, it may not be something that's current. It could be last year. I've even seen some things from 2012, 2013, but the content is either refreshed or is still applicable. A lot of content that we create is what's called evergreen, and that means that you can use it multiple times or it is pretty much timeless. And so I strive to have at least some form of evergreen content. I have some posts now, like some of my more popular posts, they were written in response to something, but I'm actually going back in and refreshing it a little bit and adding some other things to it, and hopefully going to repost it in the coming weeks. So you can check out some of the posts that may be coming out about Beyonce and Beck and some other things, because the information, I use the story as a source or as a backstory, but the information is still timeless and it's still applicable even now. So you can refresh, repost, and re-promote your content. Another thing that you can do is break it apart. So if you may not notice this, but for my 10 at 10s, if you've ever been on a webinar with me, most of my 10 at 10 content is from a portion of a webinar that I've done. Just a portion. Literally one whole 10 by 10 was from one slide, 2 slides that I did from a presentation, a webinar out of 30 some slides. So you can take out one portion of a blog post, of a webinar that you create, of a book that you may have written, of a YouTube video that you created, and you can break it apart, separate it, break that part out, and expand on that a little bit more. So you can absolutely break it apart. I do that a lot. I actually, well, that's later on. So I will talk about that too. The number 3 way that you can repurpose content is to turn a post into a list. And you can especially post that kind of content on Instagram and Pinterest. So if you have a blog post, you can maybe pull out some things from that and see if you can create a list that could be used as an infographic or some sort of graphic that you can just post on Instagram or Pinterest. A lot of those get reshares and that sort of thing. So it is really good, again, evergreen, timeless content to do that. You can definitely repost your blog post as well. But sometimes people just want a quick and dirty solution to that. They just want to be able to look at something, especially on Instagram, because we either have to type out the link to the blog post, or we have to figure it out or whatever. So it sometimes is just easier for us to be able to get the essence of what you were trying to say in that post from a graphic. And then if we want more information, or if we want to read that post more in depth, then we can go over there and do that. So you can absolutely take what's in your post and create a list and post it on Instagram and Pinterest. The number 4 way that you can repurpose content is to turn a list into a guide, a WeBook, or an ebook. And so WeBook is just a shorter version of an ebook. So if you write something that may be only 12 pages, it's kind of like a WeBook. It's still a book because it's longer than a blog post, but it's not quite ebook length because it's a little bit shorter than that. So you can also take that list that you put on Instagram, add content to that, action steps, other links, what have you, and just make that list a little bit more robust. And you can turn it and format it into a guide, a WeBook, or an ebook. And so you can use this potentially as an email freebie. So again, you're talking about taking one piece of content, say one blog post, you can refresh it and re-promote it. You can break it apart. You can turn it into a list and post it on Instagram. You can take the list that you create, add a little bit to it, or even take your blog post and beef it up and add some more content to it and turn it into a guide, a WeBook, or an ebook. And that's all from one piece of content. You see how this works and the rationale behind it? Give me some hearts if this makes sense to you. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Awesome. Great. So the 5th way that you can repurpose content is to create a Pinterest board. So if you talk about something in particular, especially on a post, one thing that you can do is to create a Pinterest board around that with various resources, pictures, quotes, whatever it is, link to products, link to other blog posts that is germane to that topic. And what you can do is at the end of the blog post, at the end of your video, at the end of your post, whatever it is on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you can link to your Pinterest board about that. And that's just another way for people to connect with you on another platform And so you have sort of like this groundswell of content that you can refer to, that you can refer other people to, that you connect with people around, all from one blog post or from one piece of content. The number 6 way that you can repurpose content is to bundle similar posts into an email. So if you have an email list and you email them regularly, you can, since I have several posts about email management and just emails in general. So I could email my email list and just talk to them, do a subject line like, you know, is your email overwhelming you? Is communicating with your tribe challenging, whatever, something along those lines. And then I can just write them a little ditty, a little letter, and just talk to them about that. Maybe give them a couple of action steps, link to several of those blog posts within that email, and then send it out. And I'm not recreating anything else. I'm not creating new content in a way. I'm just simply bundling the content that already exists on my various websites into one particular thing. So if you have several email or several blog posts or several videos about managing your natural hair, or how to do a twist out, or a content around that, you can send an email out to your list that talks about, you want to have a bang-in twist out, or want to master a twist out. And then you can just reference all of these things and create, it looks like new content, but it's actually not new content. You're just repurposing it. You're just combining it in a way that makes sense, because as you are creating content, new content, you should also be thinking about how you can combine it with existing content and repurpose it, so you're not always having to do new work. And that's how you don't run out of content. The number 7 way that you can repurpose content is to have like a focus week. So you can take, thank you, I appreciate it. So you can take a week, like 5 days, it doesn't have to be 7, it could be 5 days, and every day you focus on content related to that particular subject. So you can, if you have 5 blog posts on finding your purpose, every day on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, you can reference that content. So if you have a video one day, then absolutely you can tweet that out to your followers. You can put that up there. You can even create, especially with this focus week, you can even create your own page. For those of you that have blog sites, websites, you can create even a web page around that. So, and that can be evergreen content, because once you created that one time, if you wanted to do that focus week again, you could do it either again the next year and just refresh it, or if you wanted to do it in 3 months from now, because again, remember, people are joining your community and your tribe every day. So you could actually take that content and refresh it a little bit, maybe add a different link to it, and send out that link again. And you can, constantly like schedule that link so it goes out, that sends traffic back to your site. It gives people something of value to look at and to read and to consume. Everything is in one place, so they don't have to click in all of these different places on your YouTube channel, on your blog, on, Pinterest. I mean, well, maybe they'll have to link to Pinterest, but they can go to one page, find all of that content, and then sort of go from there. So you can have a focus week around central topics that you may be having, that you may post a lot of content about. The 8th way for you to repurpose content is to actually come up here on Periscope and then upload it to YouTube. So one of the things that I'm doing is right over here in this corner is I am using Google Chat to record me talking to you on Periscope about this particular content. So there will be an opportunity for people that have subscribed to my YouTube channel to do that. I can also upload it and embed it to my website so people can watch it up there. I can send it out via email if I want to, use it as a freebie for people to connect with me, and I'm giving them something of value. So although I'm not like really directly looking at it, I think it still serves its purpose in having something for people to look at. I can also go back, look at this, create a blog post about it, create an audio about it, create a list, create a guide, all of that sort of thing, just from this one piece of content. So once you Periscope about it, right, exactly. 24 hours isn't enough time. Like, I missed a scope I really wanted to watch. Yes, that came out yesterday, and I've missed it. I watched part of it, but you know, doing this, it creates that evergreen content. Now, you know, on Periscope, you if you have enough space, which I don't, which is why I'm doing the Google thing, you can actually record you can save the Periscope to your phone or to whatever device you are recording Periscope on. But for me, I don't have enough space on my phone because I like to take pictures. So this is my plan B. This is what I have to do as an alternative to that. But I actually like it because it immediately uploads to YouTube. So that part is already done. All I have to do is go in and maybe do some edits or some little things like that, but not a whole lot actually. So we have talked about, we're on number 8 in the ways to repurpose content. For those of you that may have just joined, I'll run through real quickly because I have 4 more. One is to refresh, repost, and repurpose content, and repromote content. I'm sorry. Refresh, repost, and repromote your content. Number 2, what do you mean you won't have to reformat for YouTube? If I record it in Google, is that what you're saying? Number 2 way to repurpose content is to break it apart. Number 3 way, so you take, well, see, I can upload it directly. With this Google chat, it automatically uploads to YouTube and it's in the format. So I don't have to do any changing at all. Right, yeah, Periscope records vertical. That's why I like recording in this, in Google Hangout, because it doesn't record vertical. So the number 2 way is you can break it apart, meaning that you can take one portion of that piece of content and use it again. That's how I do a lot of my 10 by 10 content secret there. Number 3 is turn a post into a list that you can post and make it kind of an infographic like and post it on Instagram and Pinterest. Number 4 is turn a list into a guide, a WeBook, or an ebook that you can use as an email freebie. That was number 4, I'm sorry. Number 5 is to create a Pinterest board around that topic. Number 6 is bundle similar posts into an email. So if I have 5 have 5 posts or 5 pieces of content around emails and how to manage them and all of that sort of thing, then I can send out an email to my list about how to manage email and reference all of those pieces of content within that email. Number 7 is to have a focus week. So you have maybe at least 5 pieces of content that you can focus on in a week, and you just promote and reference that content on your various social media platforms every day during that week. And you can also even create a web page around that as well. Number 8 that we were just talking about is to Periscope and upload it to YouTube. So for me, I can't, because I don't have enough room to save Periscopes on my phone. So I'm actually using Google Hangout to record this, and it'll be uploaded to YouTube almost as soon as I am finished with this scope. The number 9 way to repurpose content is to create a podcast, for those of you that may be interested in that. And the thing that you can do that makes it a little bit different, so a lot of people are adverse to repurposing content that is exactly the same as what you have done before. So when I repurpose content, one of the things that I think about and or say is that how can I add a different twist to it? So they'll be willing to go over here and look at something that I post as well. And how can it be a little bit different than something that I have over there? So if you have a podcast, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, one way that you can repurpose that content is by making it a little bit more robust and podcast friendly by telling stories, having interviews with people, and things like that, that will actually create more of a robust 20-30 minute podcast things that couldn't as easily translate maybe in a blog post or what have you. But definitely if you do a podcast interview, it absolutely would translate very well. The number 10 way for you to repurpose content is to combine multiple topics into something brand new. I do this all the time for my webinars, especially when I'm presenting to a new audience that I know hasn't really been privy to a lot of my content. I don't think of a whole lot of other things new. I think of things that make sense coming together, and from that, it something new pops up. Even if I redo content that I have, I never do it the same way twice. Primarily because the audience is different, I'm different, my focus may be different. I have done webinars, I've done the same webinar 3 years in a row on branding, and every time it's different. And every time people get something different out of it because of where they are in their life. So don't feel like, oh, I got to come up with something fresh, brand new. Sometimes just repeating and refreshing that and adding something to that is actually great, because you're in a different place. You may have learned something new that you didn't know when you presented the first time, so you're able to add that in there. Your focus may be different. Some years I focus on one part of branding. One part of branding is important to me because of where I am, whereas another part of branding the next year is important to me because of where I am in my life. So, and it's the same way with your audience. And I've had people that have sat in all 3 years of me doing this branding webinar, and they were like, oh my God, I know you talked about this last year, but I have a completely different outlook on it because of where I am right now. So that's why I say your core messages can, should, and will be repeated. And it's okay that you do that. So you can combine multiple topics into something brand new. So a lot of times especially when I'm creating webinars or presentations for work, I will take different parts from different presentations. I did that earlier this year when I was doing a leadership presentation for students. I combined something from my branding webinar, something from my productivity webinar, something from my purpose webinars, and created this whole new kind of presentation. But honestly, it was a whole lot of copying and pasting and not a lot of research and thought, because I had already put all of this thought, all of these hours and hours of work in the content. And, you know, also because I procrastinate. So I knew that I didn't have time to come up with like all of this brand new stuff, but my stuff is good because I do put a lot of effort into it. And so I just started like a whole new presentation, copied and pasted it in there, and created something new out of existing content. All right, the number 11 way for you to repurpose content is to do a compare and contrast. So when you do a compare and contrast, you literally are doing that. So for instance, for those of you that may be in the natural hair space, hey, how are you? So for those of you that may be in, oh, see, I thought you were talking to me because all my friends call me D. So I was like, oh, you're talking to me. Anyway, compare and contrast. So for those of you that are in the natural hair space, and I know we have this conversation all the time about how, yeah, all my friends and family call me D, or D-Rock. My godmother calls me that. But in the natural hair space, we're all the time talking about how I can only show you so many times how to do a twist out. But what you can do is do a comparison of, you know, when I first went natural, I did my twist outs like this. And now that I've been in the game for a little while, this is how I do my twist outs. And so you can take your old content in terms of what you originally put out about your twist outs, and then just compare and contrast with what you are doing now and what's different about it. So that is the number 11 way that you can repurpose content. And the number 12 way that you can repurpose content is what I know now. So what has changed since you originally posted that content or shared that content? It's kind of like, what would I tell myself back then? You can take that angle or approach to it. And it is a great way. Again, it's very akin to the compare and contrast. So you can take something, reference it even in a blog post or what have you, and say, 4 years ago, I wrote about this, but now I'm in a, slightly different place. And after, research and trial and error and all of these sorts of things, this is what I know now. So those are the 12 ways that I have that you can repurpose content. I'm going to go back through them really quickly. I hope that this has been helpful. After I go back through them, I will answer any questions that you may have. Number 1 is to refresh, repost, and repromote. So take existing content, especially it's easy if it's a blog post, because you can go in really quickly with that and update. So refresh, repost, and repromote your content. Number 2, break it apart. So take a part of a piece of content that you have created and focus on that one part. Number 3 is to turn a post into a list. So you can use that so almost essentially creating some sort of infographic. And you can upload that to or post that on Instagram and share that on Pinterest as well. The number 4 way for you to repurpose content is to turn a list, that list that you had on Instagram and Pinterest, into a guide, a WeBook, or an ebook. And you can use that as an email freebie if you want to. If it's WeBook or ebook, you may want to attach some sort of small monetary fee to that. Because you always should monetize thyself. I hear Natural Nicole in my head doing that. The number 5 way for you to repurpose content is to create a Pinterest board around that particular piece of content, or that subject matter. So if you have several posts or several things or a lot that you want to say or can say around, for instance, I don't know, purpose, then you can create a Pinterest board that has quotes and links to your videos, links to your blog posts, link to other people's posts that are, very akin to what you're talking about. The number 6 way for you to repurpose content is to bundle similar posts in an email. So you can send out an email to your list and talk about a particular topic. I referenced email management. So I can email my list and say, is your email inbox overwhelming you? And in that I can create like a little letter story, and then I can link to other content that I have that relates to that topic. So I know I have at least 4 blog posts where I talk about email management. So you can do that. The number 7 way for you to repurpose content is to have a focus week. So again, if I have those 5 pieces of content that are related, I can literally every day that week post something about it on Instagram, on Twitter, on my Facebook page, on my website, on Pinterest. I can literally have a week, send it out to my email list. I can, thank you. I can send that out and have a week of focus around a topic. And in that week, you have created no new content at all. It's actually just focusing on content that you've already created. And in that focus week as well, you could also create a web page if you wanted to do that. So you can have, adeearrogers.com/purpose, and everything. If I wanted to have a week of purpose, everything around purpose could be on that page, from from writing for my blog posts to videos to my link to my Pinterest page to any graphics with quotes that I want to share, what have you. The number 8 way to repurpose content is to get up here on Periscope and upload it to YouTube, which is what I'm doing actually. So you'll have a full view of this particular scope very soon in your hot little hands. The number 9 way to repurpose content is to create a podcast. And the angle that you can take with a podcast is to make it more story-like and conversational with interviews and stories. So one thing that I said is that so that it doesn't look like the exact same thing on all of these different platforms, you can reuse it and just add a little twist, add a little angle to it with things like interviews and stories for a podcast. The number 10 way for you to repurpose content is to combine multiple topics into something brand new. This is especially useful for webinars, and this is what I typically do. I look at, because at this point, I probably have at least 25 to 30 webinars that I've done. So I have well over, let me see. I have probably at least 400 or 500 slides of information that I can pull from to create something new. And so sometimes, and especially when I know I'm going in front of an audience that hasn't seen my content before, I often don't recreate. And a lot of what I'm talking about in my presentation is my core message anyway. So I don't have to recreate or create new content. I simply just have to sort of repackage it and reframe it a little bit to make it applicable to that audience that I'm speaking for. The number 11 way for you to repurpose content is to compare and contrast. So you can talk about, how it was 2 years ago and where you are and how it is now. And the number 12 way for you to repurpose content is to sort of share what I know now. So you can talk about, this is especially useful in an email. Oh, and I just did a recap. That's what I'm doing right now. Is what I know now. What has changed since you originally posted? All right, so I'm gonna run through the first 7 really quick. Refresh, repost, and repromote. Refresh your content, repost that content, and repromote it. Because remember, people are joining your community every day. So you are, don't think that you are that you are doing something new, or that you have to do something new because there are new people that haven't been exposed to your content. Number 2, break it apart. So take one part of your content and focus on that. Number 3, turn a post into a list. Create some sort of infographic that you can post on Instagram and Pinterest. Number 4, turn a list into a guide, a Weebook, or an ebook. You can especially use that for an email freebie. Number 5 is create a Pinterest board around that topic. Number 6, bundle similar posts in an email. Number 7, have a focus week around a particular subject matter that you have at least 5 pieces of content, preferably video or blog posts that you can share. Number 8, Periscope and upload to YouTube. That's evergreen content a lot of times. Number 9, create a podcast. The twist on that is to use interviews and stories. Number 10, combine multiple topics into something brand new. Number 11 is to compare and contrast previous posts or previous content with where you are now. Number 12, what I know now. What has changed since you originally posted that content? Those are my 12 ideas and ways for you to repurpose content. Again, my name is Adeea Rogers. I'm known online as the Trendy Socialite. I am the purpose pusher. I push people towards their purpose. And one reason that I wanted to do this particular piece of content or to do the scope is because a lot of times people get stuck because they feel like they have to create something new. And if you follow me long enough, you will begin to hear and see some of the same things, some of the same ideas and ideals, because that's a part of my core message. And your core message can, should, and will be repeated because, again, people are coming into your community every day. This is your core message, and the things that you are passionate about and want to share are things that just come naturally. Like you could be talking about the weather and somehow something about purpose will slip in, or somehow something about your hair will slip in. So your core message can and should be repeated. That's how people become experts and gurus within their niche, is because they repeat their core message over and over and over again. regardless of what topic they may be talking about, their core message is always the underlying and the insinuated principle of everything that they do. Can I answer any questions for anyone that may have just joined or has any questions for me or may be new to my scope? I'm so glad that they were helpful. I hope that you were will be able to implement some of them in your content. Awesome. Also, for people that may be product makers, this applies to you as well. So I always tell people, I have a client that is a makeup artist and has a makeup store. So one of the things that I always tell her is you don't have to post new pictures every day. You can take a picture that you posted 2 or 3 months ago and repost that same bit of content, even with almost the same caption. If you're going to run a sale on a particular product, you don't have to take new pictures or create new content around that. You can take a picture of somebody, like for instance, if she's running a sale on lipstick, you can take pictures of all of the people that have won that lipstick, create a flipogram and say, you know, for today, we're having a flash sale, or for the next 3 days, it's $10 off, or whatever it is. So, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So you absolutely, this even applies to product makers. You can absolutely share your product content repeatedly because, again, new people are joining your tribe, joining your community every day. I hope this was helpful. Give me some hearts and let me know that it was helpful. Thank you. Purple is actually my signature color. It's my brand color. So, and I finally found like a really cute purple maxi dress. So I'm excited about this. I actually got it from Home Shopping Club. Can you believe it? Thank you. I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. That's awesome. All right. So I'm actually going to do something that I do. So I do a 10 at 10. I do a webinar on Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I talk about just various topics. I think tomorrow's is on 10 ways to pursue your purpose without guilt. So when I do it live, there are always more than 10 things, but for my live people, because they take the time out of their schedule and stay up late with me to do that. So there are always more than 10 on the live. But what I post, if you follow me on Instagram and you see the list that I post on Instagram, that's always just 10, because I want to give you all more value that actually take the time out of your schedule to sit up and watch with me. But you can also take, yes, it is a slumber party with me. One time I'm probably gonna do it in my pajamas. Because I'll be so tired when I get off. But what was I going to say? Oh, but you can catch replays. I do have my replays available from the 10 at 10. Thank you. For the 10 at 10 on adeearrogers.com/10at10. That's ADEEARROGERS.com/10at10. Yes, I be hating life because I'm like, oh, I can't take off my clothes. I got to keep them on because I got to do 10 at 10. So yeah, one day next week, it might be a slumber party. So you can catch my replays. There are some really good ones I've done. I did self-care. I've done 10 clues to discovering your purpose. Last week I did something on natural hair. So there's some good replays already available. Thank you for sharing. I will do that. There are already some good replays up there if you've never experienced a 10 at 10, if you want to catch those before tomorrow's 10 at 10. So you can do that. All right, so I'm actually getting ready to come back in a few minutes because I have another topic that I'm going to talk to you about. And that title is going to be, you don't have to always change your act. Sometimes you have to change your audience. Yes. And that's going to be a little bit about, yeah, exactly. But then I'm going to get off because at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Natural Nicole is coming on doing a free webinar, a free scope. And if you know anything about her, her scopes are free, but when she repurposes her content and creates a webinar, that's not free. So I'm going to do mine so that you all have plenty of time to get rest, get your family fed, get them out of your hair, tell them, have a seat, put Netflix on, go run the red box and get a movie, put them in bed, do whatever you have to do so that at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can be back on Periscope for Natural Nicole. I'm just saying, by any means necessary, because we got to get these coins, because that's what I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to be back in just a few minutes, going to freshen up, and then I'll be back with, you don't have to always change your act, but change your audience. Bye. Have a great one. Thank you.